What's up everybody, and welcome to One Man's Opinion. And today we're talking about the Mortal Kombat sequel that is to come. Now we already know that they've signed the guy who plays Sub-Zero to like 5 movies, so we know we're getting sequels, probably get some prequels, maybe like a Sub-Zero standalone movie. With that in mind, I can't help but wonder what characters we're going to see in those upcoming movies and what actors they will get to play them. Now this first movie is doing really well in the box office, which means the next movie will probably have a bigger budget, hopefully more writers, more people that are familiar with the canon, with the lore. But anyway, we'll be moving into the tournament. So what I did is I sat down and I said, okay, what characters need to be in this movie? And who are the actors or actresses that should play those characters? Had a lot of fun putting this together. Big thank you to Harley, my fiance, for helping me put this list together. She came in clutch with a few of them, helped me find some different people that fit the characters pretty well. Keep in mind as we're going through this list, I've got 20 characters that I think should be in the next movie. Now that doesn't mean that we should have all 20 characters fighting. We already have a handful of characters left over that didn't die from the first movie. A lot of those characters are obviously going to be in this film, but I think in the next movie we should have some cameos, some people that are there maybe in the background, or even have a few speaking lines, maybe some post-credit scenes, just different people that we should see in the movie. Now, some of these would be forefront in the tournament. Others would be sort of lurking in the background. You know, some bad guys that are to come that will be big bad bosses in the future. Others that, you know, are more controllers of the narrative, not so much hands-on guys. We're going to talk about some of those characters. I got 20 characters coming at you, so let's get right into it. Okay, up first, everybody knows that Johnny Cage is going to be in the next movie. He was a glaring omission from this last one. It's something that everybody's wanting to see. Who should play Johnny Cage? Now, I gave this a lot of thought, and I wanted kind of a younger actor. I didn't go with like the youngest guy on the list. I thought about guys like Zac Efron, Channing Tatum, and some of the bigger names in Hollywood. Even looking at guys like Liam Hemsworth or Armie Hammer, Alden Ehrenreich, there were a lot of names that I kind of went through. Every one of them had a great reason why they should be the guy. Nobody had like everything across the board, whether it's the resume to be able to play this type of character, the action movie chops. You know, you want somebody who's used to doing action films. I went around and around with a bunch of different names, and then one hit me. And it was almost so obvious I didn't want to put it on the list, but it really is the best choice, and that is Chris Evans. Chris Evans can play that arrogant. I know everyone thinks like Captain America, he wasn't arrogant. Chris Evans has done a lot more in his filmography than just play Captain America. So if that's all you're looking at, well then you would think, yeah, he's got the action chops, but does he have the charisma to play a guy like Johnny Cage? He absolutely does. If you look at him in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, he's not afraid to play like a really arrogant punk, but also have like that goofy side. I know that character in that movie was like an over-the-top Hollywood guy, and it's not exactly the same kind of over-the-top Hollywood that you want from Johnny Cage, but it shows you that Chris Evans isn't afraid to kind of play an outlandish, goofy, overextended version of a Hollywood actor. And that's kind of what Johnny Cage is. Chris Evans has great timing for jokes and things like that. He's a very funny guy. If you listen to interviews with a lot of cast from the Avengers, they talk about how Evans is the biggest prankster on set and how he's always messing with other people. He's very funny in interviews. He could definitely play Johnny Cage. He definitely has that look. Now, keep in mind as I'm doing this isn't, do I think they'll get Chris Evans to play Johnny Cage? Do I think they will? No, probably not. But this is a wish list, so I'm going for like the A-list, the top. Like, if I could have anybody play these characters, who would I get? And for Johnny Cage, I would love to see Chris Evans bring Johnny Cage to life on the big screen. That would be a match made in heaven for me. I don't think there's any facet of Johnny Cage that Chris Evans couldn't easily wrangle in. Now up next we've got Baraka, who is another one of those OG characters. Made his appearance in the second video game, so I would be shocked if we didn't see Baraka in this second movie. And I thought of only one person who could play Baraka perfectly, and that's Ray Park. Most people know him for playing Darth Maul. He's played several other big name characters throughout his careers, maybe some people that you would be surprised to find out that he played. Ray Park is a good actor, but he's also an incredible acrobat. And just the things that he can do would lend itself to Baraka perfectly. So to me, it was a slam dunk. Put Ray Park in some makeup. He's used to working in that sort of stuff. He could wear some prosthetics, you know, and he would make an excellent Baraka. I have no doubt in my mind that he would make a perfect Baraka. Okay, up next, Jade. Now, Jade is another one that I went back and forth on, but eventually I came and I landed on the perfect cast, Denai Guerrera. And I may be mispronouncing her name a little bit. She is a little bit older, but I've always thought of Jade as more of a mentor to Katana anyway, and so I don't mind if Jade is a good bit older than Katana anyway. Denai has played Michonne in The Walking Dead. She's had parts in the MCU. She's really athletic, really handles herself well as a serious female combatant. She really comes off strong in her roles. I've always liked her a lot. I think she could handle the part of Jade as sort of that mentor to Katana perfectly. She would dominate it. To me, it's a slam dunk. Up next, we have Katana. Now, we're doing this one as a two-parter. Katana and Mileena. Now, I know Mileena was in the first movie, but frankly, I don't know that she even had a line. I can't remember. If she did, it was like one or two. Secondly, it looked horrible. Thirdly, I think most fans would just want to forget about that Mileena and move on. So I'm proposing a new Katana slash Mileena. And the reason I say Katana slash Mileena is because Mileena is a clone of Katana. So it should be one actress playing both parts. That's the way I look at it, because Mileena should look a lot like Katana, only with the Tarkatan mouth and maybe like slightly tanner skin, which would be easy to do with anybody. The woman I have casted for Katana is not a Chinese woman. Keep in mind that Katana has only been a little more oriental in like the last game. Up until this very most recent game, this is how Katana looked. The first time you saw her, all the way up to MKX. And so she's always been more of a white Caucasian looking female. And so that's the direction I went. I wouldn't mind having an Asian woman play Katana. It could go either way. But I was kind of digging around looking for who I thought could play this role. And I landed on who would be an unlikely Katana, but I think one that could really pull it off, and I went with Daisy Ridley here. Now, hear me out. I'm not really a fan of the Star Wars sequels. I don't blame Daisy Ridley, though. I think Daisy Ridley's actually a pretty good actress, and she has the action chops from the Star Wars franchise to be used to this more sci-fi world. She would be ready and willing to do those fight scenes, to get down and dirty, and to get her hands a little bloody. I actually think it might be a nice release for her, because I know that the Star Wars franchise can be a very stressful one. I think you can kind of see that in some of her interviews. I think she was kind of stressed and angry about how some of her movies were received, so it might be good to get her in a Mortal Kombat movie and just let her do some punching. Also, she's got the look, and I think she has the range as an actress to play the kind-hearted Katana and also the sadistic Mileena. I would love to see that contrast. I think it would be a really fun role for someone like Daisy Ridley to sink her teeth into. And then also probably pretty cathartic for her too. It's a good role for anybody, and I was trying to find a good actress who could pull off that duality but also do it like believably. And I don't know, I just got a feeling about Daisy Ridley. I feel like some people are not going to like that, but I think Daisy Ridley could handle it. So just recast that Mileena that we got. Again, if you watch my spoiler review of Mortal Kombat, I gave an easy fix for Mileena anyway. They're most likely going to say she was an imperfect Mileena from Shang Tsung's Flesh Pits. We're probably going to get a recast of Mileena anyway. If we don't get a recast, we'll at least get a updated version, a more perfected version of Mileena. There's definitely going to be something different about Mileena the next time we see her. Might as well go ahead and recast her. I really like Daisy Ridley. I think she could do it. Okay, up next we have Smoke. I think the obvious choice would have been to go with somebody like Evan Peters or Aaron Taylor Johnson, just because like Quicksilver has that silver hair and we've seen that before and it's fresh in our minds, and it's like, okay, yeah, grab one of those two because we've seen them with silver hair before. We've seen, so they could play Smoke, right? But I don't think so. I think I wanted to go somewhere outside of the box for this one, and so I really kind of like did some looking around, and I came up with Richard Madden. Now I know Richard best from Robb Stark in Game of Thrones, and he's a really good actor. He also, check this picture out where he's got like a little bit of silver in his hair. I don't know if he like did that on purpose or if that's natural. Pretty cool look, but I think he could pull off a Smoke, and it's like something so different from Robb Stark, but also he's been in that fantasy world. He has those action chops. Hey, spoiler alert for Game of Thrones, he was taken from us too fast, and I miss him. And so I don't know what it was about it, honestly. As I was going through actors and looking at different people, nothing felt right for Smoke. And Smoke's one of my favorite characters of all time. I think we should see Smoke. I'm not sure that Smoke should be in this tournament. I think we should see him in some capacity. I expect we see a lot more Lin Kuei members in the next Mortal Kombat movie. I really think he could do a good job. He's got everything you could possibly want to fill this role. Up next, we have Cyrax. The guy I got playing Cyrax is Michael B. Jordan. And the reason, look, Cyrax is going to be a guy who probably doesn't get much time on screen. But it's kind of a win-win. We see Cyrax pre-robot Cyrax. Michael B. Jordan could play that role really well, and if he didn't want to stick around in a franchise like Mortal Kombat, when he gets turned into a robot, you could pretty much have anybody in the suit. So you have a big name like Michael B. Jordan show up and play this guy, and he wouldn't have to sign on for like 8 contracts or something stupid. He could come in, he could play the guy, he gets turned into an android, he goes home. It'd be a big name to draw a crowd. Beyond that, if he did want to stick around, Cyrax's story, more than probably anybody's in Mortal Kombat, is one that I felt never got fully fleshed out the way it should have been. Cyrax is one of the few Lin Kuei members who is openly against the Cyber Initiative. I always waited on the day where Cyrax would be turned back into a human and fight with the good guys. And I feel like that's a good direction the movies could go, where they could get away from the Mortal Kombat story a little bit, but also still maintain the integrity of a character. They could easily have Cyrax avoid the Cyber Initiative, or go cyber for a short time and then come back one day restored and fight for the good guys. You got a touch of that in the latest Mortal Kombat game, but it was never full Cyrax back. He was still robot Cyrax. I would love to see human Cyrax come back, and if Michael B. Jordan wanted to do more than just the first time he was playing Cyrax, if he wanted to continue that role, it would be easy to keep him on board that way. So it's kind of like a win-win. You get a huge name, you get a perfect actor for the part, and also a character who is just underdeveloped to me and could really use some strong writing, and get a strong actor, a really good actor in Michael B. Jordan in there to play it. To me, it's a slam dunk. Perfect. Okay, up next we have Sector. I couldn't do Cyrax without Sector, Sector without Cyrax. Had to do them both. And Sector, I've thought of a lot of actors, and then it hit me. Genius. Who you get to play Sector? Robin Shou. Get Robin Shou in here to play Sector. He's a little older now. Sector always looked a little older to me anyway. And plus, it would be such a nice nod, such a nice cameo to people who were fans of the original Mortal Kombat movies. Get the original Liu Kang in here to play Sector. He wouldn't have to be around for long, because Sector's going to get turned into a robot too. Sector's not one to ever really get turned back into a human, so he could have his moment. Obviously, he's a martial artist. He would be perfect for the role. It would be fun to see him play a bad guy role, to step into that role after being Liu Kang, being our hero for so long. In my mind, that will always be Liu Kang, or at least it will be until the new Liu Kang really shows us what he's got. He hasn't had a chance to do that yet. But man, how exciting would it be to see the former Liu Kang, Robin Shou, step onto the screen, but now he's a bad guy. He's Sector, head of the Lin Kuei Initiative, or Cyber Initiative. That would be so cool, man. It would just be the dopest thing ever. A great nod to the originals. Get Robin Shou back in there. I think he would have a lot of fun with the role. And then if he wanted to stick around and wear the Sector costume after, just to, keep doing the movies, even though his face wouldn't be shown. I know some actors don't like that. But he strikes me as the type of guy who wouldn't really mind a whole lot. I think he would have fun with it, and I think the audience would have a blast watching it. So Robin Shou, to me, we have Nightwolf. Okay, up next we have another one of my all-time favorites, Nightwolf. I loved this character as a kid. MK3 was my first Mortal Kombat game on Super Nintendo, and so a lot of my favorites come from that game. Man, I always thought Nightwolf was just so dope. The whole outfit, the whole Native American thing was so cool to me. My granddad loves Native American history and culture and stuff like that, so I think that rubbed off on me, especially as a young guy, and I love Nightwolf. He's just so dope in his power. Anyway, the things he can do are awesome, and I could think of one person who would fit the bill perfectly, Martin Sinsmeyer. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He played Red Harvest in Magnificent Seven, and that's where I know him from. Certainly, he had to do a lot of action in that film. He's a good actor, solid choice. I think he's got a really good build to fill the shoes of Nightwolf. I would love to see him. Good actor. If you don't know him, go check out Magnificent Seven, the remake. It's got Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt. Really good movie. Up next, we have Ermac, and Ermac was a little bit different. So Ermac, you don't really ever get a face. So it's more about the voice. And so I thought, well, who would be able to do the voice acting, but also if they wanted to put him in front of the camera, if he wanted to do the stunts, and if he wanted to do the acrobatics. Ermac's more of a magic user anyway. He's not always going to be up front, close and personal, hand to hand. I think it's highly likely we get Ermac in the next movie because I think Shang Tsung's going to be much more hands-on in the next film, and having Ermac around only makes sense for that. And so we wanted somebody who could do really good voice acting, number one, and then also someone who has history of acting quite a bit. I won't say that I found just necessarily the perfect fit here, but the guy I landed on was Ross Marquand. Ross Marquand, or Marquand, I don't know exactly how you pronounce his last name, and I know I'm messing up a lot of these probably. But I know him most from The Walking Dead, but also he surprised me when he showed up in Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame and played Red Skull. His ability to change his voice and do really good voice acting and impression work really kind of struck me. When I heard him, I was like, wow, he's doing a really good Red Skull right there. And then I kind of got to digging into him a little bit. Turns out he is an impressionist. And he's also a voice actor pretty regular, along with doing a lot of play acting and movies and TV shows. And so he sort of has like a plethora of things he could bring to the role, where he can do the voice, and he's also acted in a lot of different facets, a lot of different areas throughout his acting career. I don't think there's any reason why he couldn't pull off that Ermac voice. And then also, he could probably pretty easily pull off the whole like floating around mystical mumbo jumbo. I mean, Red Skull kind of floats there, so we've seen him float a little bit. I don't know, it just, the more I went through actors and everything, I was like, you know what, I just got a feeling this guy could do it. I think he could do it. And I think it's a pretty good pick. If you don't like this pick, by the way, I would love to hear someone else's suggestion for like a good Ermac. That would be, I would love to hear that, because I struggled with this one a little bit. Up next, we have Shiva, and there were two women. I went through a long list of women on who I thought might play Shiva. Two women. One came to mind immediately. One came later, and I was like, ooh, yeah, that's good. Number one, Gina Carano. We all know from The Mandalorian, also from Deadpool. Look, she's a solid lady, you know. She's just got that presence. She's got that power. When she enters a room, you're just like, hey, man, don't mess with this chick, you know. She just has that presence, and I like her a lot in both the things I've seen her in, which is Mandalorian and Deadpool. She certainly has the action abilities. She was a UFC fighter, MMA fighter, so she's an expert striker already, so she's going to bring a certain amount of experience to the role it is needed. Shiva is an intimidating, imposing character. Now, I will say Shiva is probably a little darker skinned than Gina, and so, you know, they're going to have to CGI some arms onto her anyway. She needs 4 arms. But I don't think that's really an issue. You know, you can give her, she can get a tan or something, you know. I don't think that's an issue. They're going to be using a lot of CGI anyway. But instead of going full Goro, where it was just a CGI monster, and instead of going full puppet, like in the original Mortal Kombat, find a middle ground where you have like an actress in there, kind of like they did Thanos, like they did Thanos in the Avengers. How there was an actor there the whole time, but they CGI'd around him, but his face, his movements, you know. Do it that way. CGI around Gina. Make her look like the person. You know, it's not like Josh Brolin has purple skin either, so it's not a big deal. But I will say the other person who really gave Gina a run for her money, I didn't go with in the end because I was afraid she didn't quite have the acting chops to pull it off. But the other person was Tamina Snuka. Now, for those of you who don't know, Tamina Snuka is a WWE wrestler. She's also the daughter of Superfly Jimmy Snuka. And she is a good-sized lady who brings a lot of power, has that same kind of powerful presence, you know, wherever she goes. I was just a little worried about her acting chops. As far as the look goes, she probably has a little bit more of the look of Shiva, intense look of Shiva that the character needs. But I think with Gina Carano having more acting experience, being in the UFC where the strikes are real, you know, instead of the WWE where they're not. I'm not saying WWE athletes aren't athletic and that they don't know how to fight. They've been trained, I understand. But the UFC is obviously real, where the WWE, that aspect is not real. And so I thought Gina just had a slight edge on her. Even though she might not quite have the look as much as Tamina, I think Gina was overall the better choice for Shiva. Next up, we have Stryker, another MK3 alum. At the end of the Mortal Kombat movie, Raiden makes a statement about finding more heroes. I'm certain that Stryker is going to be one of those. Look, there was one person who came to my mind that I wanted to play this role, and it was a slam dunk from the beginning. John Cena. Look, there's no one else. I don't care who else. Yeah, maybe Mark Wahlberg. Maybe there are others that could fill the role. John Cena was just so perfect to me. I don't know what it is. He just has the look to me. I've thought for years, since I heard, what was it, like 2-3 years ago, that they were going to do a Mortal Kombat movie, I thought when they cast Stryker, they need to get John Cena. I think he would be perfect. I just have this image, and I can't put anybody else there. I think John Cena is the one. Okay, up next we have Quan Chi. Quan Chi's another one of those that I don't expect to be fighting, but I think we need to start seeing him in the background of the movie, kind of puppet mastering certain aspects of the film. I struggled to find a good Quan Chi because Quan Chi has a very particular voice that you want him to have. That deep, almost regal voice of Quan Chi. That's not a very good Quan Chi. Rated. I don't know. It's a very deep voice, but it's also like powerful. And so I found this guy, and I'm not a fan of the Hellraiser movies. As a matter of fact, I've never even really watched them. They just don't look like my genre. But the latest guy to play Pinhead, his name is Paul T. Taylor. He's more of a classically trained actor, but he has done some movies here and there. If you're not squeamish, and if you don't mind a lot of blood, after this video you can go watch some scenes with him as Pinhead, and he nails the voice. And Quan Chi is such a controller, he's rarely getting his hands dirty himself. Paul wouldn't have to have just a whole lot of martial arts training or MMA training as Quan Chi. Even when Quan Chi does fight, he uses a lot of magic. So whoever they get to play Quan Chi isn't going to need just to have a whole lot of action shots anyway. And by the time that comes around, he could have had plenty of training and, you know, pick me up stuff going. He just had the voice to me, and I struggled a lot finding a good actor for this. So if you have a better actor to play Quan Chi, I would love to hear that down in the comments. Up next, we have Boracho, and I bounced a couple names around for Boracho. I thought Ken Watanabe might be a really good Boracho, but I landed on Chow Yun-Fat. It was back and forth. Both of them have storied careers in Hollywood. I could see either one of them taking on this role. I think Chow Yun-Fat has just a little bit better sense of humor, just based on the roles I've seen him play. Ken is usually more of a serious character most of the time, and so I think Chow just has that sense of humor, and Boracho is kind of a goofy character, so I could see Chow Yun-Fat playing Boracho. Also, another character who I don't expect to see fighting in any tournaments anytime soon at all, but maybe for flashback purposes for Liu Kang and Kung Lao, or to show up to give Liu Kang a little inspirational talk, or just to be there to kind of talk to the heroes, maybe help them train to get ready for the tournament. There's a lot of facets that Boracho could come in and be a key part of the story while also not having to fight a whole lot. Of course, Chow Yun-Fat, if you had to do it, you know, he can do it. Not someone I expect to see fighting, but someone who could be more of a background kind of guy in the story. Okay, up next we have Frost, and I had a long list of ladies lined up to play Frost. Anybody from like Chloe Grace Moretz, who we know as Hit Girl. Also thought about Cara Delevingne a lot. She really has the look. She's a really good actor. And so like I had a lot of names go back and forth, but then Ruby Rose just stuck out like a sore thumb, and really she's got it all. Playing Batwoman on the CW sucked for her, and so it was unfortunate, you know, for her, but I still know that she got a lot of like hand-to-hand training for that part as Batwoman, and she's a really talented actress. Like, she does really good work. I've seen her in several different movies, and she always does a good job. She's got the look down pat for like a Frost. Just kind of, Ruby Rose has this intensity about her. She really does. She has this angry face, you know. She always looks like she's a little pissed off, and that's good. That's good for Frost, because Frost always has like a chip on her shoulder. I don't know, she just has everything you could possibly want. We know she looks good with short hair, so, you know, there's just a lot there, and I think Ruby Rose would be just the perfect cast for Frost. It's one I felt really good about. Number 16. Now remember, people gotta die in these movies, so you're gonna want some cannon fodder. Kind of like how they dropped some 3D era characters into that first movie. I think they'll keep doing that. Characters that weren't very popular 3D 3D era characters are really good characters to throw in and have them kill. And no one is hated more than Su Hao. He is the most hated character in Mortal Kombat history. Nobody ever liked him. He's basically a Kano ripoff with no personality. And so I thought, get somebody in there to play this Su Hao guy that can just, pretty much show up and then die. And the guy I landed on was Jason Clarke. He kind of has the look to him. Su Hao looks like a serious character, like he's a big guy. And he's, his eyebrows are like narrowed, and, he looks like, oh man, this guy's an intimidating guy. And then, nobody liked him, and so we haven't seen him since the first game. So get somebody in there that's a bigger, kind of more intimidating built guy like Jason Clarke. Know that he's probably going to die pretty quick. But I don't know. I felt like Jason Clarke would be a good slam dunk for this character. So throw Jason Clarke in there. Also from that 3D era, Cobra. You got to have some good guys die, right? And they're going to go get some heroes. So have them pick up Cobra on the way. Cobra's another one of those characters that fans just didn't like. And so I thought it would be really funny if you got like a really big name actor to play Cobra. Throw him in a blonde wig if he needs it. Have him march in like he's the savior, like he's the hero, like he's the guy. And then have him get just ripped in half in his fight. It would be good fan service because everyone kind of understands that Cobra's kind of a joke in the MK universe. And so it would be, I think all around it would be perfect. And I couldn't think of anybody better to play him than Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum has like the physique to play somebody who should be an intimidating fighter. He can also play like kind of an arrogant moron really well. And that's kind of how I see him. Throw him in a blonde wig, put him in the gi, have him walk in like he's just the guy. He can still be a pretty decent fighter. Everyone in Mortal Kombat is, but have him lose his first round. And I just think it would be funny. I think you could do a lot of comedy with it. Channing Tatum has excellent comedy chops. I think it would be really good to see him as this arrogant douchebag kind of play off of Johnny Cage, who's also kind of an arrogant douchebag, and then to see him just get completely destroyed maybe in match 1. Just have him go out there against somebody like Baraka. Give Baraka a win. That would be crazy, right? If we got to see like a legacy bad guy character not just be a jobber like they are so much. Put him out there against like Baraka and let Baraka just with the swords. It would also be a really good way of showing Johnny Cage that like, hey, this isn't a joke, this isn't a movie, that kind of thing. So like it accomplishes a lot while also giving a little levity to the film, also having like a funnier kind of character and really good fan service, I think. Okay, we've only got 3 more. First, we're going to talk about Kotal Kahn. Now, I talked about this in my spoiler review. I think it would be really smart to bring in some late generation MK characters, some of the newer characters, as soon as you can. I think that's really good fan service too. A lot of younger people who play these games weren't around for MK3 or MK1 or MK2 and that kind of thing. So to get some of those newer characters in the door could do a lot for your younger audience who will be watching this movie regardless of what rating you put on it. And so I think Kotal Kahn's one that fits the narrative, that fits the timeline, who was always there, technically by how the story goes. He's a really good, big bad. He's a general of Shao Kahn's army, and he could be a good replacement for Goro. You could get a huge name actor to play him. I'm saying Jason Momoa would be perfect to play Kotal. Just a big, imposing threat, with the tattoos. Kotal's always got the tattoos, and everything. Jason Momoa just fits the bill perfectly. Put him in that green paint, he would look so awesome. He can have that kind of deep voice. I think it's a really good pick. I think Jason Momoa is perfect. Okay, 2 more to go, and we're going to do Shao Kahn first because the last one I want to talk about is kind of a 2-parter. Finally, we come to the big bad, who I expect to be a post-credit scene. You finally show Shao Kahn. Now, you need someone who is big, intimidating, and who will dive into the role. Now, Shao Kahn is a big, scary, intimidating figure. He's also a little cartoonish of how bad of a bad guy he is, because he is just an awful ruler, dictator kind of guy who just smashes people. He's got this real deep growling voice, he's just over the top. Hear me out, because I don't think a lot of people would have thought about this. Dave Bautista would be a perfect Shao Kahn. Dave is a really good actor. Surprisingly really good actor. I've seen him I know a lot of people know him as Drax, who is kind of a goofy character, and among the Avengers looks small, but realistically Dave is one of the biggest people on set. At 6'6", the dude is a tower. He's huge. He's bigger than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I know for whatever reason in your head, because of, I guess, how broad he is, he seems like in your mind that he would be a shorter, stockier person than The Rock. But no, he's taller than The Rock. He's bigger than The Rock. He's a massive guy at 6'6". He's got the appropriate body build where it's just like this thick boulder, like just the rippling muscles. And there's no doubt in my mind, you put him in that armor and that helmet, man, he would take this role on. What I love about Dave is he dives headfirst into all his roles. You see how goofy he is as Drax, and then watch some of his more serious roles, and it's like almost a totally different person. He's got excellent comedic timing, but also he just loves to act. He loves to dive into his roles. And this is such a far-fetched, outlandish character, Shao Kahn really is, that I think Dave would love it. I would love to see him as a bad guy. He's definitely got that intimidating presence that you need. And you put him in that helmet, man, you give him that big hammer, and I just feel like, man, Dave Bautista, he could really show out in this role. I know it sounds like an out of left field pick for a guy like Shao Kahn, who is the big bad, and we all think of Dave Bautista as like the WWE wrestler or as Drax the Destroyer, but I'm telling you, this man, watch him do interviews, watch him talk about his passion for acting. I promise you, if he got this role, he would put himself into this role as much as he could. He would have so much fun with it. I know he would. Finally, we have Qiqiang, and I saved him for last for a couple of reasons. Number one, he was always my favorite character. Number two, I find him incredibly difficult to cast for a couple of reasons. The main reason being, he recently became Chinese, which is not something that he was. Look, this is MK3 when he's first introduced, and he looks more Caucasian all the way up until the latest Mortal Kombat game. It kind of backs me into a corner, right? Because they've already cast Bihan, who is a Chinese guy. And so you could find a Chinese actor, and I did. I found a really good Chinese actor I think would be spot on for Qiqiang, but I also wanted to find an actor who I thought would play the more Caucasian version of Sub-Zero, just because it's the version I grew up playing. And it was, Sub-Zero was Qiqiang Sub-Zero, MK3, was my favorite character of all time. He was the first character that I got good enough to beat my older brother with. Most of the time, I never beat my older brother until I got older myself. He was the first character that I could contend with. And so I just wanted to cast somebody who kind of captured that childhood hero that he was of mine. And so I picked two. The first guy is Harry Shum Jr. Most people probably know him from Crazy Rich Asians. He was also in Step Up 2, I think. Anyway, he's a really athletic guy. He was also in Shadowhunters, and then I know him from, what are those movies called? Prison Break? Is it Prison Break? They're Stallone films. The first one was good. The second one was not very good. But Harry Shum Jr. was kind of the main character in that second one. While the movie itself wasn't very good, he does some fighting in that movie, and his choreography looks pretty good. And so he's got some training in this area. I think he fits the bill pretty well. He's the right age. He's got the look. I think he would make a really, really good Qiqiang. I think he's spot on. He's a good enough actor. He's got a lot of potential to do a lot of big things in Hollywood. I like him a whole lot. The guy I cast, and how you would do this would be to say, and it would even make sense for a narrative, you would probably say that Qiqiang is half Asian. You would say that he's half Chinese, half probably American. And maybe that's why he and Bihan are so estranged. Maybe that's why they don't get along. Maybe that's why their family was separated for a little while and they didn't get to know each other very well until later in life. You know, that sort of thing. It would make a lot of sense. I think it's an easy write-in. I went around and around trying to find, and I never could find somebody who I thought, man, this is the guy. And then finally, I have to give credit to Harley because she came up with it. Sebastian Stan has the look. He's got the talent. He's got the acting chops. As the Winter Soldier, he's certainly seen enough action in his movies to hold down the role. And I think Sebastian Stan would make a perfect Qiqiang if you wanted to have like a half Asian, half Caucasian, sort of story, sort of spin on him. So either way, whether you want to go with the more original MK look or you want to go with the new where he's more of a Chinese guy, either way, Harry Shum Jr., perfect for the role, would do awesome. And that's it. Those are the 20 people that I expect to see in the next movie. Some notable people that I left off that I think would be better suited to come back in like the third movie. Noob Saibot, who obviously will be played by the same guy who played Bi-Han Sub-Zero. Sindel, I don't think there's any reason to bring her into the story yet. Shinnok, again, I don't think there's any reason to bring him into the story yet. Probably still needs to be another movie or two before we even see him. Kenshi, look, the casting for Kenshi, if it's not Keanu Reeves, I don't know who you want it to be. If I'm not mistaken, the character of Kenshi was based off of Keanu Reeves from The Matrix 3 anyway. But anyway, Keanu Reeves is obviously perfect to play Kenshi. But I don't think we ought to see Kenshi just yet. And then there were two more 3D era characters, Jarek and Kai. I think they would be easy to fit in here somewhere. They would be cannon fodder. They'd probably die pretty quick. Frankly, my list was long enough with just 20, so I just left those two off. But, you know, you could fill in. You could fill in somebody for those two. Okay, did I leave anybody off that you think should be in the sequel? I know this was a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me down in the comments below, who was your favorite casting that I did? Was there one that you were like, oh man, he really hit the nail on the head with this cast? Was there one that I missed and you were thinking, no, this actor would be so much better? I would love to hear those. I love that kind of conversation, that back and forth. I'm pretty sure that anybody you could come up with was probably on my list at one point, but not necessarily. There are people that I forgot. I'm sure. So I would love to hear your thoughts on characters that you think you might see in the next movie, somebody I left off the list, somebody that I didn't cast well, or maybe somebody who had a better idea for somebody that could play that character. Whatever it is, go down in the comments. Please let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. I appreciate you watching. As always, if you didn't like what you heard here, please don't get mad. Remember, this is just one man's opinion. Thanks.